Well, thank you everyone for joining us today for this insider briefing about the Chimpanzees in Need emergency rescue effort. We're going to give you some updates today on our plans, what we've accomplished, and what we have ahead of us. So before we get started, I just want to remind you that you will be muted during this call. There are a lot of people watching, and we want to make sure everyone can hear the speakers, but you can always ask questions and enter comments in the chat box, and we will be answering them as we go. And then at the end, we have time set aside to answer questions. So my name is Erica Fleury. I am the program director of the North American Primate Sanctuary Alliance, or NAPSA. We are leading the Chimpanzees in Need emergency rescue effort, but it's definitely not a solo effort. We are joined by so many other organizations and foundations that support this work. And I have two of our experts with us here on this call today. So we are going to be hearing from Ana Paula Tavares, Chief Executive Officer at Save the Chimps, and Patty Reagan, Founder and President at Center for Great Apes. So I'll let them introduce themselves. We can start with Ana Paula.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. And we're so excited to be talking about the wonderful development and recent developments of the Chimpanzees in Need campaign. As Erica mentioned, I'm Ana Paula Tavares, CEO of Save the Chimps, have joined the organization in January of 2021. I just love this planet and all the beings in it, and was really thrilled to join Save the Chimps. Before that, for the last 20 plus years, I have been working in conservation of biodiversity, conservation of wildlife habitat, climate change, and on addressing the very issues that are threatening the existence of so many species, from birds to orangutans. So when I first met the chimpanzees at Save the Chimps, it was truly love at first sight, not because of the 98.6% of the DNA that we share with them, but because of the 1.4% that make them so unique and truly magnificent beings. So it's wonderful to be here and to be part of such a wonderful rescuing effort.
Thank you, Ana Paula. Patty, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Patty Reagan. I am the founder of Center for Great Apes, and we're coming up on our 30th year next year of giving home primarily to former entertainment, circus, Hollywood, orangutans, and chimpanzees, as well as those coming from the exotic pet trade, small zoos, and even some in research. And so we have currently 44 chimpanzees and 27 orangutans here. And I'm to introduce Ed, right?
That's right,
Yeah.
we got Ed.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ed Pert. I am the regional manager for the California Department of Fish and Wildlife South Coast region. I'm also the project manager for this project for the department. And so it's been wonderful working with all of these folks, and it's been a long road, and we're looking forward to finding, final homes for these chimps. So thank you for letting me join. I'll just be here to answer questions today.
I have to point out, Ed is supposed to be on vacation right now, and so he's not going to have a large presence in this briefing, but he has offered to join and answer questions as needed. So thank you, Ed, for your constant dedication to the chimpanzees.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you.
Well, we're excited to share more with you about our progress that we've made. And so many of you have been with us since the beginning of this effort back in late 2019 and early 2020. We couldn't have gotten this far without everyone, and we're just excited to share where we're at with our progress with rehoming all of the way station chimpanzees. So we are excited. In a little bit, we're going to hear more from Ana Paula, because Save the Chimps is our newest sanctuary partner in this effort, and we have big plans for them quite soon. And we're going to learn more about what life will be like for the chimpanzees that arrive there. We'll also be hearing from Patty Reagan about how one of the groups that was actually the most recently transported group, the Great 8 left to go to Center for Great Apes last November. We're going to hear how they're doing, and her pictures are phenomenal. So there's a lot to look forward to here. So here on the screen, you can see why we say it truly takes a village. There are a lot of logos that we also could have added here if we had space. This effort to rehome the wildlife waste station chimpanzees has been a long and complex effort that involves so many entities. Not only, NAPSA is leading this campaign, but the California Department of Fish and Wildlife is who stepped in when the waste station shut its doors in 2019. They had been struggling for quite some time. And while the closure was certainly a shock to the sanctuary community, it was very quickly understood that the animals could no longer stay on site. And so when Fish and Wildlife stepped in, there were over 470 animals living at the wildlife waste station that needed homes. Most of them were successfully rehomed, and that is a miracle in and of itself. But there were 42 chimpanzees for whom there were no spaces at accredited and reputable sanctuaries in this country. The reason for that is that they were full or committed to take other chimpanzees, and they would need to physically expand through construction that would take a lot of time and money. At the same time, the chimpanzees needed to go somewhere, so someone had to step in to solve this problem. And so that's when NAPSA got involved. Through grants from the Arcus Foundation, we were able to hire fundraising consultants. Cassie is one of them. You heard her speaking a little bit already. And we have public relations consultants, hi Cassie, who are making this work. But beyond that, I mean, this involves the partner sanctuaries, the sanctuaries that help transport the chimpanzees, the wildlife waste station itself, and all the important donors and foundations that make it work. You will hear a little bit more later about Seventh Generation Advisors. They are the nonprofit who is working with NAPSA to collect the funds and disperse them as quickly as possible so that we can move the chimpanzees. And I can answer any questions about how this works a little bit later on, but it is working. And so we've been excited to also have the support of the media and some celebrities to help get the message out. If you go to chimpsinneed.org, you'll be able to watch a short documentary. It's about 7 minutes from filmmaker Sean Munson, and it features Joaquin Phoenix and Rooney Mara, who were able to come to the waste station, see the chimpanzees, and when you watch their reaction to the chimpanzees housing, and at that time we didn't have all the solutions for the chimpanzees, but just to see them understand the scope of this problem is really it's a visceral reaction, and I think it's important that everyone watch that if they can. There's also a 30-minute NBC special that aired nationally, and you can watch it also at chimpsinneed.org. And we have a link to the new National Geographic article that just came out this past week. We're thrilled with it because it tells the stories of these chimpanzees and everyone working on their behalf. And it also goes into the issues, the bigger issue of why there are even chimpanzees who need homes and for whom there is no funding. Why aren't their owners funding them? The labs that house them and that bred them. So there's some big questions there too. And the link to that article is in the chat box here, but also at chimpsinneed.org. So that was a mouthful, but so where we are today, we have a group of 7 chimpanzees that we're calling the Sunrise 7. We did not have a solution for them until quite recently. So we had identified homes for a number of the chimpanzees, and we had rehomed 23 of them already. So that was wonderful to know. But there were 7 chimps for whom we could not find spaces at trusted and accredited sanctuaries until Save the Chimps stepped up. And we're just so happy that through Ana Paula's direction, they were able to find space to take in more chimpanzees. And so I think now is a good time for us to pass it to Ana Paula, and she can talk about her sanctuary and why it'll be the best home for these chimps.
Thank you, Erica, and congratulations on your efforts. Starting with a little bit of the history, I'm sure you know about Save the Chimps, but our sanctuary was founded by Dr. Carol Noon, a primatologist, and John Stryker, the founder and chair of the Arcus Foundation. Dr. Noon sued the Air Force. This is like about 25 years ago, and on behalf of the chimpanzees, and won the right to care for 21 of them, and that's how it all began. Soon after that, 266 chimpanzees from the Colston Foundation followed. And this is our beautiful sanctuary. So it was, we're in Fort Pierce, Florida, in 150 acres. These are the 12 islands, about 3 to 5 acre islands, where 221 chimpanzees enjoy lifelong care and loving home here in Florida. And so it's only the water that keeps them within the islands. And as you all probably know, chimpanzees are, like us, social beings who live in social groups, who learn from each other. They learn how to behave, how to communicate, how to thrive, and how to survive from each other. So it's really wonderful that we have the opportunity to have them all living in this large indoor and outdoor spaces. Here at Save the Chimps, we strive to provide them with a life that is as close to what they would have had in the wild as possible. So what does that mean? It really means that they have freedoms of choice and self-determination. They can choose who to spend their time with, whether they want to be indoors or outdoors, who they want to socialize with, whether they want to groom with their friends, bask in the sun, take a nap under the shade of a tree, participate or not in enrichment activities. Our residents come from US Air Force, the biomedical labs, entertainment industry, and the pet trade. Most of them lived in small cages for most of their lives before they came to the sanctuary, and lived in isolation, not having the opportunity to learn from each other, to live in a social group. Many of them did not even learn how to be chimps. So that's what we work here toward, is creating the space for them to learn from each other. And this is a really exciting time at Save the Chimps, because for the first time in our history, all of our social groups in all of the 12 islands are fully integrated. Also, really special developments here that allowed us to be able to welcome the Sunrise 7 is the fact that we went just over, or just a little, like over the last 9 months or so, from having 9 chimpanzees in our special needs section to having only 4. That's because we've been able, through the expert professional plans of our team and work of our team, we've been able to move 5 of our chimpanzees, that is Abdul and Geraldine, Millie, Tootie, and Caleb, from the special needs area where they live in groups of 1 or 2. And these are chimpanzees that because of psychological or physical trauma, have not been able to join a large social group. And this is really sad, but it's really exciting to have been able to make that transition. And I can just tell you one little moment when Millie, after spending all of these 5 chimpanzees that have been fully joined, that have recently joined a large social group, have been living at special needs for some of them for close to 10 years. So just imagine Millie at this door where she's moving from the indoors to this 4-acre island for the first time in many, many years. And she stops, hesitate a little bit. For the first time, she'll be able to have nothing between her head and the sky. And she hesitates a little bit. And her newly made friend, Manny, sees her, comes back, gives her a hug, waits a little bit with her, holds her hand, take a step, and onto the island she moved. And Millie is thriving as all other chimpanzees. And this is what we are looking forward to see happen with Jacob, Magic, Caleb, Jeff, Jake, and Ernesta. Dr. Andrew Halloran, our Director of Care and Behavior, visited them and observed over a period of close to a week that they exhibit very encouraging behavior that demonstrate that they are very likely to be able to successfully join one of these social groups and thrive here at Save the Chimps. So our plans for them is to, they are in 2 groups. So they are a family of 5. And what we hope to do is bring them into special needs for a couple of months, where we'll see whether we can integrate the dynamic duo, Jake and Caleb, with Magic's family. And then we're in the process of building our Primadome, transferring it to Tanya's Island, where we only have 13 chimpanzees at the moment. And we're also building 2 new climbing structures. So you see here on the left, one of the climbing structures. If you could go back a little bit, thanks, Cassie. And our plan is to first integrate, if possible, the group of 7, the group of 5 with the 2, and then integrate them into Tanya's family with 13 chimpanzees and a really strong, good alpha chimp in Worthy, who probably will do a fabulous job facilitating and welcoming the new group. And at Save the Chimps, in addition to, there are 85 of us, including a team of 50 care, behavior, operant conditioning care, a chef, welders, and carpenters, and mowers, and a team of department of veterinarians with 3 vets, 3 vet techs, and 2 vet assistants, providing the chimpanzees with preventive care, urgent care, as well as treatment for ongoing treatment of chronic conditions, and a whole lot of love and a whole lot of cleaning and a whole lot of respect for these wonderful beings. We believe that it is our moral responsibility to care for them and to provide them with a safe and peaceful retirement. And we welcome your help. It takes a lot. So if you would like to help, we encourage you to support the Chimpanzees in Need campaign and help us to make this wrong that have been done by these chimpanzees right. And here is our chef. The chimpanzees, once they join our facilities, they're gonna enjoy 3 meals a day, a diet of mostly leafy greens and vegetables, and about five enrichment activities per day. And again, a lot of love. So this is Chef Josh and Elway and Pumpkin enjoying some delicious, freshly made meals for them. I will stop here and look forward to answering any questions that you may have. And I'm going to pass the mic on to Patty Reagan, who will share an update on the Sunshine 8 or Great Apes team also coming from Wildlife Station. So we're again thrilled to have this opportunity to be able to welcome them and very much look forward to providing them with a loving home and lifelong care and a place where they are not just going to live, but actually to thrive, and look forward to answering any questions you may have.
Thank you, Ana Paula.
Yeah, thank you, Ana Paula. And I am so grateful that Save the Chimps has stepped up to take the remaining 7 chimpanzees at the Wildlife Way Station. We actually were trying to take the Sunshine 7, the ones, Sunrise 7 are the ones going now to, we're all in Florida, right? So Save the Chimps and Center for Great Apes. We have Sunrise on the East Coast for Save the Chimps and Sunshine here in Central Florida. But we changed our group to the Great 8, changed our group to the Great 8 because we actually added Jeter, who you see in the middle there. And Jeter was an ex-pet for over 30 years, or a pet, and slept in his owner's bed for 5 or 6 years, and then lived in his backyard in Palm Springs, and went to the Wildlife Way Station just a year before they closed. So he never really was able to get into a group. And we have so many chimpanzees here. We have most of our apes are from entertainment and from exotic pet trade. So we're very experienced in helping these guys gently get into a group for their companionship and so forth. So Billy, Ewok, Josh, Maud, Sabina, Mystery were 6 of the chimps that were born at Lemsip, and they were the youngest group that came in 1996 to California. And then Shasha was born a couple years later to one of the Lemsip original chimps there. And so Shasha was raised at the Wildlife Way Station by the founder for a few years, and then put into the baby group, who are now all in their 20s and early 30s. They're a cohesive and wonderful group. Jeter is not going into that group. We are introducing him to another group slowly, with females and a couple expat females, and one at a time. So one thing I wanted to say about this, everything, the Save the Chimps slides are wonderful, and they have the highest quality care there, and so do we. Enrichment, variety of enrichment, good, excellent veterinary care and diet. But we also we're in a very heavily wooded area that started with 15 acres and now is over 100. And we bought the land around us in old orange groves. And so we have expanded this new area into one of the orange groves. And our habitats are 30 and 40 feet tall, but they are enclosed because we did not have the type of land where you could build islands. And but the unique thing about the Center for Great Apes is that we have right now 14 chimpanzee habitats, and we are doing 12 orangutan habitats, and they all are connected by 2 miles of elevated tunnels, so they can run all through the woods and switch all their habitats. And so this is a picture that I love, because this was the first day that the 7 Lemsip chimps stepped out onto the grass for the first time. And guess what? they had been in a lab as babies in a nursery, never been out on grass. And then the wildlife waste station had concrete floors and no grass in their habitats. So they were afraid. They didn't know what that was. And you can do the next one. The first one to step out actually was little Shasha. Cassie, you can change it. I think we lost Cassie. Anyway.
No, I'm here. It moved.
Okay.
It might not have moved for you yet.
So Shasha, being the youngest of the group, and guess she's the most dominant of this group, even though I think it's because she's the princess and everybody has kind of spoiled her, but she gets whatever she wants, takes the food that she wants. And once she went out into the habitat, the others followed her. So you can go forward. So we are still building climbing structures in this habitat and adding in toys. There is lots of space here, and this is just a little story. Billy is in his 30s, and he has this amazing display. Now, when a chimpanzee displays, which is very normal, and they, run at top speed, and sometimes upright, and sometimes on all fours, Billy loves to run the length of the entire habitat with his hands up over his head, and he makes this unusual roar like a dinosaur. Which is quite unusual, and it's very formidable, and it's a little shocking, and he's running right at you, and then he sits quietly down. He doesn't even jump or hit. So he loves that space and running across the length of the grass. And I think the next slide shows the size of the habitat. They do love to watch everything that goes on outside. This is the old orange grove that we have renovated to be an area for a number of chimp groups that we just took, and we're still under construction for additional chimpanzee space right now, which is really also orangutan space, because we're the only orangutan sanctuary in North America, and we still get requests to take orangutans that zoos can't take. So we're still under construction, and has a lot more toys in it now, but the big thing is that they have connection to leave this habitat and go to other ones. And so they've done really well. They're a very harmonious group. They rarely fight. They, of course, have indoor area. They have 5 bedrooms for the group of 7. And when they first got here, after a drive across country, because we moved them in November before it was too hot, and they did really well on the trip. And we thought, well, they really need to get out. They're going to be stressed. They all just chilled out, got their food. They love to be inside. And that's the part that Anna Paula was talking about, choices, who they want to be with, where they want to go out in the shoots and go somewhere else. They have that choice. I think our last slide is the Shasha, maybe. Oh, this is, having a snack on the, go back one, Cassie. Okay, so you saw it quickly. So we are building more climbing structures in the habitat, and it's a continual process of all our habitats, even the oldest ones. We've been up here in this sanctuary over 25 years now, and we're continually renovating and continually adding new structures and new toys. So the last slide is Shasha, the baby. And as I said, she is quite the princess of the group, and she's having her snack indoors here, but she loves bandanas, and we give her, all kinds of enrichments, but she always loves bandanas. And actually the black bandana is her favorite. And she's, quite a stylist. So we're very happy that they've done so well. We're really grateful for the foundations that are on this talk right now that have supported our building effort. There's several of you I see that helped us do this. And at the same time, we were building for other chimps that were coming from other places in the country. So it's been a big effort for 2 years, and we couldn't be happier that they're here, and really happy that Save the Chimps is taking in the remaining wildlife waste station chimps. So
thank you, Patty. Before we go on, I have one question. Someone is asking about Shasha's sign language past. Are you noticing her using sign language, or is she communicating more like a chimp with the other chimps?
I think I have not seen her do sign language with the other chimps. Now, she has primary caregivers that are with her all the time. she does definitely, they all let us know what they want. I mean, they communicate to each other and to their caregivers in so many ways, way beyond sign language. Although we have a couple chimps here that know American Sign Language and talk to us all day long, mostly for food, but sometimes they want to chase or play or ask you if you're hurt. So Shasha does communicate with everybody.
That's what I thought. And I've seen that, Patty. I've seen it when I was visiting your sanctuary and someone was asking you for a blanket and you got them a blanket, and it's just fascinating to see. Well, thank you. Thank you for that. We have 18 chimpanzees left at the wildlife way station right now. We keep saying, you know, the last 7 are going to save the chimps, and that those were the last 7 for whom we needed a solution. But beyond them, there are also 11 other chimpanzees still at the way station. They will be going to Chimp Haven in Louisiana by the end of this year. So that's exciting. And we're just so happy to be at this point now where we have the solution in front of us and just a little bit more work to get there. So Chimp Haven, I already told you they're based in Louisiana. To meet their needs to prepare for these chimpanzees and care for them, we do still have to raise about a little under $100,000 to complete their costs. We have to raise another $260,000 to complete construction at Chimpanzee Sanctuary Northwest, who have already taken 9 of the way station chimpanzees. So those chimps are already integrated in groups and enjoying the fresh air and all that good stuff. And, you know, if you missed that, actually, we have a recording that I can share with you of our last insider briefing where Chimpanzee Sanctuary Northwest shared updates and photos just like Patty did. And it was wonderful to see. But we want to make sure that they're able to complete their construction as well, of course. And then we have $590,000 that we're working to raise to go towards 1 year of care for these chimpanzees at their new homes. So that's our way of thanking the sanctuaries that are extending themselves so much to welcome in these chimps unexpectedly, and make sure that, that we can contribute towards at least 1 year of their care in their new homes. Overall, we've raised over $3.8 million, and so we have less than $1 million to go, and that feels fantastic, and I have to thank all of you for helping us get there. We're working really, really hard to raise the money we need to complete this campaign and finish it up this year. Our priority, of course, is moving the chimpanzees as quickly as we can, because at the way station, they're in the path of wildfires. There's an insufficient water source, and it's an unstable environment for them. So we're moving them out as quickly as we can. It's important to note that all funds raised go directly to the needs of the chimpanzees. No humans are earning money from this campaign. No one's being paid through this campaign. And our fundraising partner, 7th Generation Advisors, is managing all the funds pro bono. So thank you for joining us to learn more about where we are, what we have ahead of us, and what our plans are. So we do have some more work to do, and we're just so thankful that you're here along to join our village for this crazy ride. So now we can open up for some questions. I know we've tried to do our best to answer them as we go in the chat, but we do have some time here. So I think Cassie has been compiling some, and she can pose them. And then if it makes sense to have him do so, we do have Ed Pert who can answer questions that might be specific to California Department of Fish and Wildlife's work. So Cassie, what do we have that I can help answer, or that our other experts can answer?
That's a great question. All kinds of really wonderful questions are coming in, and I'm going to scroll through and see where we are. You did address the one about sign language, which was really wonderful. We got a question early on, really directed at Anna Paula, asking about Tonka. Is that something that you can address right now with us?
Absolutely. Tonka is doing really well. And it's really wonderful to see how he came in and acted like he knew what was going on, and have it being like really mellow. And it was amazing how curious he was when he first walked into the outdoor yard. Like, he checked out who were the other chimps in the next door yards, and kind of nodded to Clay and nodded to Cheetah on the other side. Cheetah got very jealous about all the attention that Tonka was getting. Tonka likes to be on the on the higher level of the yard, so he found his place. But he seems to be doing really well, and it's amazing how he looks like, you know, he's been there always, and seems to be enjoying his neighboring chimpanzees. And again, very, very mellow, very seems very comfortable, eating and drinking and just doing well.
And Anna Paula, sort of related to that, and something that you referenced when you were describing how you integrate the chimpanzees that come. We have a question about how do you diagnose or how do you identify a chimp that you might refer to as special needs, and tell us a little bit more about what that means.
So at Save the Chimps, we really, again, strive at bringing in and rescuing chimpanzees that can live in a social group, because our setup provides the best opportunity for that type of living, where they would be losing if they don't get to join one of these large social groups. In the case of the Sunrise 7, for instance, Dr. Andrew Holloran went to spend some time there to observe them and see if they behaved in ways that made him believe that they would be able to join a social group. So that means natural chimpanzee behaviors. And do they speak chimp? Do they communicate? How do they relate with each other? So that when they come into the large social group, they can thrive within the dynamic that it's very similar to the dynamics that they would have in the wild. So there is a hierarchy, there is an alpha male, they create situations and get some excitement going, and then some will follow and support one chimpanzee, the others will support the other chimpanzees, and that altercation can create some excitement, and that's very natural. And then they all make up and groom each other, and that happens over and over again, and that's how they keep a healthy dynamic that mimic very much the life that they have in the wild. But you need to do that carefully and thoughtfully, and so you need to ensure that the chimpanzees have the makeup to be able to thrive in a situation like that. And some of them who have gone through tremendous physical or psychological trauma might not be able already. And what it takes in the case of those 5 that I mentioned that went from living in a smaller group to joining some of these larger social groups is like 5-10 years of careful rehabilitation, just helping them get over some of those physical or psychological traumas and getting them ready to be able to thrive like a chimpanzee. Some of them, they don't even know that they are chimps. They were raised as the son of a human couple, or they, like in any of those situations, did not have an opportunity to learn from other chimpanzees how to be chimpanzees. So we got to carefully get through all of that process to then create a situation where they can be with other chimps and thrive and learn from each other.
Thank you, Anna Paula. That's really helpful. And not really related, but a question that Erica had given us a little bit of insight into earlier, but wondering if we wanted to speak to it a little bit more. Had a great question early on around some of just the physical variation in chimpanzees. I'm noticing that some have different colors, some are gray, some are darker, and just like with people, I imagine there's a lot of variation. Wondering if anybody wanted to speak to whether that reflects age or genetic lines or other things like that. Is anything, or just
know
variety? Yeah,
It can reflect age. Some of the older ones we have in their 50s are very gray bearded, but we have some that have turned silver at 10, 11, 12, a couple of them that have, it's I think, individual variation. Do you know more about that, Ana Paula, with yours?
Well, the thing that came to mind, I think a little bit is age with the gray in the back, on their back, right?
beard.
As they age, and their beard as well. But then unfortunately, there's also some incredible difference on some of them that were either pets or entertainment industry chimpanzees that all of their teeth are removed, and they are castrated as well. And some of them, so when that happens, they are longer and skinnier, or they are smaller in size due to that. And that happens because by the age of 7, they grow to be too strong and too dangerous. And then some of these trainers try a couple of things to be able to manage them, but then find out that it's not possible. They shouldn't be living those lives. So that's some of the greater difference. Some of the females are smaller. Some of the older females are smaller, and I think similar to humans.
But
We shrink a little bit as we age.
To the color of the hair, we do have some 7, 8, 9-year-olds that have gotten very silver. And I think that is the individual, when you're asking about the hair color, it's a little bit of individuality too.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you both on that. Ed, I have a question that's really best probably for you to tackle. Wondering about the fire season. So for those of you who are not in Southern California and who are all over the United States, Southern California is having really unusual weather today. We're having some monsoon weather. So we've got some big clouds. We've got a little tiny bit of rain. We're getting a lot of lightning, dry lightning. And so everybody's sort of on fire alert, which is, nerve wracking. And the way station is in an area that is really at significant risk of fires. Ed, can you walk us through a little bit around preparations and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah. Thanks, Cassie. Whoever asked that question, it's a very good one. And it's something that we spend a lot of our energy on, trying to ensure that we are going to be ready to evacuate if need be. The Wildlife Way Station has evacuated like hundreds and hundreds of animals in the past, a couple of times, but they've also just sort of sheltered in place for other storms, firestorms. So it really depends on the circumstances, but like I said, we put a lot of energy into ensuring that we have the equipment there. We have an evacuation plan. We're working with the local fire authorities. We've also worked with the chimp care specialist, and they actually prepare the chimps to evacuate quickly. They run a family unit through this exercise to get them through a sort of maze of their enclosures and into cages. They do that on a very regular basis so that if we had to evacuate quickly, those chimps were ready to do that. So we spend a lot of time on that, and that's a very good question. And it's something we worry about all the time. And this is another reason why, if we can move the chimps sooner rather than later, that would be very comforting to us, to all of us here.
Thank you, Ed. That's very helpful.
Thank you.
Let me see what other questions. Couple of questions. Go ahead, Erica.
I was just going to say it's been a relief to know that Fish and Wildlife is overseeing the way station these past few years, because even only for the wildfire reason, we know that there is a more robust plan in place in case they do need to evacuate, and that there are more resources available to do that. So we're just so grateful. We hope it doesn't come down to that, of course, but it's good to know that Fish and Wildlife is involved in overseeing that part of the effort.
Yeah, and if I could add one interesting sort of fact there, at the beginning of all of this, when Wildlife Way Station was selling off many of their assets, they actually sold off some of their trailers and cages and things like that that were needed for evacuation. And they were just trying to survive like we all were. They were trying to make sure we could all pay the bills and things. And so when we took over and we said, okay, you know, what about evacuation plan? They had a wonderful plan in place, but when we went to actually check to see if it was implementable, it wasn't. And so the department, myself and others, we literally scoured all over the state, finding equipment that we could use there. We had to get a bobcat from the Oroville wildlife area, which is, you know, 300 miles to the north. So we literally looked all over the state to find equipment that we could use to ensure that we could evacuate those chimps if needed. And it's just been one of those, another crazy part of the ride that one would never expect, but that's just, you know, sort of how desperate I think things were at the beginning of all of this, when the way station didn't have the resources to continue to run the place. And so we've worked together, and I think we've got it under control now.
Thank you, Ed. Very, very, very helpful, and just a ton of work. As Erica said at the beginning, it takes a village. Eric, I see you answered a really interesting question that I know probably lots of us have wondered about when we think about the COVID pandemic and whether or not chimpanzees can actually catch COVID, or chimpanzees being vaccinated. And you addressed that a bit in the chat, but do you want to elaborate on that a little bit more? Sorry, I'm reading and talking.
Yeah, this is a hot topic for sure, and it has been for years now, of course. You know, through NAPSA's network, I hear a lot about this, and the sanctuaries have all been discussing who is vaccinating their chimp populations and who isn't. So there's different perspectives on that and different reasons to vaccinate or to hold off. Each sanctuary has a different stance on that. And so, and it does take a lot of, I think, work, and it takes someone really dedicated to working with Zoetis, who's the manufacturer of the animal COVID vaccine, to implement that. And so the way station chimpanzees have not been vaccinated against this. That does not mean that anyone's being ignorant. Like, no, there is not universal agreement on whether or not this is necessary for the chimps. And it's also important to point out that there have been, and correct me if I'm wrong, any of the experts on this call, but last I heard, there were no documented cases of chimpanzees contracting COVID in captivity, even though they've been around caregivers who have ended up having it and were contagious at the time but didn't realize it. I know the sanctuaries have had COVID, you know, go through the caregiver populations, but the chimps have never come down with it. And nobody knows why. Of course, it's a wonderful surprise. We don't know why this is, but the short answer to that is that no, the chimpanzees are not vaccinated, but it's an ongoing discussion. And, you know, just like with humans, there is a lot of opinions on it.
And gorillas have come down with COVID in 4 zoos now. And, but I don't know of any African sanctuaries that have had COVID with chimpanzees or orangutans yet. It's still, everybody's kind of communicating to see what it is. So we're not sure why the gorillas were susceptible.
Really interesting. And Diana's confirming in the chat that no documented cases of COVID-19 in chimpanzees yet. That's a good news.
Thank you.
We only have a couple minutes left in our session. So Erica, before I ask you to wrap it up, one question that has come through a couple times in the chat is to walk us through again just the rough timeline of the chimps being rehomed this year, and sort of, you know, when we think that might occur and what that looks like.
We are hoping and planning to move all of the way station chimpanzees out by the end of this year. So by the end of 2022, they should all have been moved to, 7 to Save the Chimps and 11 to Chimp Haven. That is pending the fundraising success, of course. I don't have specific dates to share with you on when they'll be moving, but I promise you, as soon as we have news to share, we will be shouting it from the rooftops, because we're always happy to announce a transport once it's taken place. So, and then, our campaign does hope to wind down. We may have to continue fundraising for those aftercare funds that I had mentioned for 1 year of care for each chimpanzee. I'm heading to most of these sanctuaries. So you may still be hearing from me a little bit after that, but we need to move those chimpanzees as quickly as possible, and that's what we're doing.
Thank you very much.
I hope that answers the question.
Any last questions before we wrap up? I did see a real interesting question about, do the chimpanzees react to the caregivers wearing masks? And I know there was a time early in the pandemic when we were at the weigh station where the chimps were, and the caregivers were saying that the chimps did do a bunch of double takes occasionally, like, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? And then they adapted to it pretty quickly. And I think that that's probably the case. They sort of did it like how my cat does when she sees me wearing a mask. She stares at me for a moment and then rolls her eyes and goes on.
Mm-hmm. I would agree. I think they've
Yeah.
adjusted.
They've adjusted.
Patty.
Yeah. Well, our caregivers wear masks when they clean the night houses. Have always done that. And so, yes, and any training close up. So it wasn't a big change, but it certainly wasn't the caregivers wearing it all the time in the heat.
Mhm.
So, but everybody's adjusting, and we're hopefully coming out of it.
Yeah.
Well, we always say chimpanzees are wonderfully resilient, even though we wish they didn't have to be, so that we can learn a lot from them, right? Here you can see our contact information. So if you have any questions about chimpanzees in need in general, you contact NAPSA and you can find our information there, including the website for Chimps in Need and the contact info for Save the Chimps and Center for Great Apes. So I think that's it for today. We've covered a lot and there's always more we could talk about. So I do know that we will have further insider briefings. Probably, we might take a break this summer because people are traveling, but we'll be doing that soon and we'll tell you more as soon as we have more news to share. Thank you, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you all for joining us.
Thank you.
And thank
Take
you,
care.
to our wonderful speakers, Anna Paula, Ed, Patty, thank you, and Cassie for making it work.
It takes a village. It's really great to see everybody here today. So many familiar faces. It's really wonderful.
I love our village.
I know, me too.
Last time on one of these briefings, we had someone comment, "Go Chimps." And we love that. Remember we were saying that after, "Go Chimp, go Chimp."
Thanks.
Well, Kathy, it's nice to see you.